So you're finally getting into music production and you need some at-home gear that's going to be efficient to make your bedroom studio really pop. Welcome to Monfloro Garden. I'm guitarist and producer Monfloro, and today I'm going to be showing you guys some of the gear that I use for my home studio that's right behind me. In this video, I'm not necessarily going to talk about DAWs you're using. While that does have a pretty big impact, I'm just going to focus on the gear of the overall studio. But in the end, I will be sure to include the price of some of the most well-known DAWs so that if you're just starting out music production, you at least have some sort of idea of what you want to do. Now, music DAWs are all going to vary, especially in terms of workflow and what kind of music you really want to produce. I'm gonna leave the research up to you guys to do that, but in the end, I'll be sure to leave you a price point and also a few good DAWs that are worth checking out. So the gear that I'm about to show you that's behind me is what I use for my bedroom studio currently. This stuff is gonna be more tailored towards the beginning producer, but you can upgrade later on as you see what the limitations are with the gear you have. So all this stuff is gonna be within a budget, and it's gonna be very affordable considering I had to buy this stuff while I was at school and while I was doing school and my job. This is the gear I use currently to produce my music, and while it's not the best of the best, it gets the job done and it allows me to produce quality music. Now, this gear does have some limitations, but if you're just starting out, those limitations are not going to be a barrier for you whatsoever. It's not going to be until you get into the higher tier stuff and after you're working on a more advanced level that the limitations really start to show themselves. So what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to include the price and also links down below of where I got this stuff. The reason I'm choosing... When I was first starting out, it was really hard for me to find good gear that was affordable and that was good. On YouTube, I always found people just talking about their bottom tier gear and comparing it to the best stuff they had, which didn't really help me much. So what I did was I kind of had to do some research on my own and go out a limb and buy some of this stuff and see if it really owned up to the standards that I needed. So without further ado, I'm going to go through, show you guys, and also I'm going to give you some samples of what the audio would sound like with the gear that I'm using right behind me. So when it comes to building an at-home studio, one of the main pieces of gear that you're not going to want to skimp out on is going to be your user interface. You want to make sure you get yourself a quality interface because this is what your sound is going to be processed through. You're going to want an interface that's highly efficient at minimizing gain and also has low latency. The interface I'm using and the one I'm probably going to continue to use is going to be the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. So you can get these, I'll leave the prices to all this stuff in this corner, but this is a very solid interface, especially for those of you who are first starting out. You're going to want an interface that's not going to fail on you and one that's not going to give you a lot of latency, because when you're recording music and you're really focused on time, latency is not something you want to have to worry about. My best recommendation is that you get yourself a solid interface, one that is very credible and one that a lot of people are using, because these are typically going to be the better ones. The interface is probably going to be one of your most expensive pieces of gear that you're using in your bedroom studio, but trust me, you're going to want to make sure that you're putting a good amount of money towards a really good and solid interface. Now, the next most important piece of gear in your studio is going to be the monitors. Decent studio monitors are going to be mandatory because this is how you're going to mix and master your music depending on the sound that's coming out of them. The ones I have behind me are not the most expensive monitors, but after doing some research, I realized that I needed something affordable and that would get the job done, and the ones I have behind me do just that. I'm talking about the PreSonus Aris 3.5 studio monitors. These are super affordable monitors. You can get them for around $100 or maybe even less, and their quality, especially for the type of music that I've been producing. Now, like I said, they're not the best of the best, but when I was first starting out, these were perfect for me, and even now, they're still getting the job done. You're gonna wanna make sure that you find studio monitors that give you a really flatline sound without much bass boosting or mid boosting. You want a set of monitors that's gonna give you the driest possible sound without fine-tuning any of the signal that's coming out of them. This enables you to get a very clean master and mix, and will sound good no matter what speakers people are listening to them through. Now, the problem I have had with these monitors is that with some mixes that I'm doing, I may have to transfer over and listen to it on my phone or my MacBook behind me, or maybe even go to my car speakers. This helps to make sure I have a really versatile mix and one that works well in all different types of settings. This is just going to be a producer trick overall, but you can do this pretty much with any monitors and you're going to have to do it regardless. Now, the next type of gear that you're going to need if you want to do any vocals within the music you're producing is going to be your mic. So the mic I have here is the Xingyu ZY801. So I don't really do much vocal work within my music, but I wanted to find a mic that would be decent for me and also at a good price range. I'm gonna have the price to this mic up here. This mic, it works. Now, with some EQ tweaks and a little bit of effects and reverb, you can make this mic sound just as good as a $300 mic. The main thing that you're going to want to focus on when you're getting a mic is that it's producing a really solid signal. I'm going to drop some samples right now of some songs that I produced with this mic just so you guys can hear the overall quality and as well as hear what I've mixed them on. If you really want to get rid of these, please three, then we can get up and I'll tell you, see what I need, and I can probably tell you what I know, but I know I can tell you what to do. Now, unless you have some sort of booth setup. Next thing you're gonna need are decent headphones. The headphones that I'm rocking are the 1Dios, and I got them for a pretty good price. I just picked them up on Amazon. I primarily got the headphones just to track my guitar sometimes, or just to hear the output that's coming out of my mic. You're gonna definitely want to invest in really good headphones later on if you plan on taking your producer game to the next level, but if you're just starting out, some decent $40, $50 headphones will do just the job for you. Not only do they produce a good signal, but they're fairly comfortable as well. So for the next piece of gear, depending on what kind of music you're producing, you may or may not need one, but it's gonna be a MIDI keyboard. So for all my people that plan on producing with keys or producing with melodies, and especially EDM music, a MIDI keyboard is pretty much gonna be essential. Now for most DAWs, you can use the plugins and use the keyboard as your MIDI, but it's never gonna be as effective, and sometimes it helps to just press keys down. The one that I'm currently running is a Alesis V Mini. Now it only has 2 octaves, but what I can do is always just create the MIDI track and just adjust it myself. I have been writing into limitations with it just because as I'm producing more advanced chords and writing more progressions on the MIDI, I find that I'm gonna need a bit more than 2 octaves of keys. Now I've been using this keyboard now for 2 years, which is how long I've been producing, and I have nothing bad to say about it. It's definitely gotten the job done, and as well as with a good MIDI plugin on your DAW, you're good to go. You definitely don't need to follow on a MIDI keyboard because for the most part, they're all gonna do the same thing, and they're all gonna sound different depending on what plugin you're using anyway. So you're just gonna want something that feels comfortable to you, has enough keys to your liking, and that's really all you need. So I'm gonna give you guys a page that shows the price of all the gear that I just mentioned, as well as where you can find it, and hopefully this is enough to cover your budget studio needs. Now, for those of you who are also looking at getting a DAW for your music production and you're just getting into it, the one I'm gonna recommend is going to be Reaper. So you can get Reaper for $60 with a full personal license, and with Reaper you can also try it out as long as you want for free without even paying anything. With DAWs, your preferences may change, or the style of music that you're producing may change over time, so at some point you may have to change over to another one. And for me, I changed over to Ableton. Ableton is a lot more higher end, same with Logic, but the DAWs aren't gonna be all that important until you really find out what you wanna make and the type of music that you wanna get into producing, and also your style of music. Just for those of you wondering, I'll leave prices to the 3 that I just mentioned. Other than that, that's really all you need in order to just get started producing music. I never had really anyone to go to and ask, hey, like, what's the best cheap affordable gear? I would just always see people comparing their cheap gear to their expensive stuff. But honestly, that's not the case for most beginners. You typically just need something you can afford and something that's gonna work for you and allow you to produce really good tracks. And like I said, I've been using all the gear that's behind me for 2 years at this point, and it's been good. I do plan on making a few upgrades within the next few months or so, but right now this stuff has allowed me to produce amazing tracks that I've been beyond proud of. Hopefully this helped you. Be sure to drop a comment down below if you have any questions on any of the stuff I just mentioned, or if you just want to chat about it. And also, if you don't mind, clicking that subscribe button would be such a big help out, so I can keep producing more content for you guys and try to help people who are just getting into producing music at a business level. This is Monfloral Garden, and until next time, guys. If you really want to get rid of these, please 3